welcome to Ego Netcast. I am Martin Lindeskog, and today I'm talking to Alison.
Hi there.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. And I was thinking...
Good.
Good to say. Well, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's Donaghey.
Donaghey. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Okay.
So, we are using this Ringr app.
Right. Yes, we are. I was just trying to put my headset on so it'd be more clear, but I can't seem to do it with this.
Yeah, you could use a headset or your earbuds and plug in your phone. Work.
Just trying to get into preferences so I can do that.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, good. So I will start out.
Good?
Yeah, great. I will start out reading from your Twitter profile on Domino Thinking. Thinker of uncommon thoughts, and I can't wait to hear your common thoughts. I am a business owner, speaker, radio host, mom, adventure, traveler, ... And you're located in Nanaimo, British Columbia. How do you pronounce that?
Nanaimo.
Nanaimo. Is that the Indian name? Native?
I think it is, actually.
And
yes.
And your website is dominothinking.com. And you are following 129 peeps and 135 are following you. And I will thank podcastguests.com, the service, using this service to get new guests in the pipeline. And you are the first person who answered on this, you could say, classified on podcastguest.com. So thanks for responding to my classified ads there and for invitation to be a guest on my show.
Yeah, well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for posting it.
Yeah, and we have had some conversations back and forth with the help of a service called X.ie. So it's a virtual assistant with artificial intelligence in order to schedule and booking sites. And we have this time difference. It's what is this? Noon in Canada now?
For me, it's 9 o'clock because I'm on the West Coast.
Okay, so 9 o'clock on us. So it's 9 hours difference then. So, so we had a bit back and forth there, but now we are here going on. So that's great. And I sent a short email to you also because I like your style to think opposite and think as a contrarian. And I said I look forward to talk with you about your book, Contrarian Thinking, and tequila, because that will probably take at the end. I have a thing to say about beverages and so on. But could you start out saying what's up with you, Alison, and what you're up to right now?
Oh, well, I am... Are you talking like professionally?
Yeah, you could say professionally and personally also, and hobbies, interest, whatever you fancy.
Okay. Well, right now I'm coming off of a book launch, and so that is creating all sorts of new things to learn and understand, which is pretty interesting. I hadn't expected to write a book, and then the opportunity came up, and as we got talking about the content for the book, it just made sense to write it. And that it's amazing how when you just start opening your mind to something that you can do, how many other things fall into place as a result of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I search on your site also, have you already written ebooks and books on domino thinking there? Because I went to Amazon and I saw books there and I was intrigued by the topic, and also your new talk show that you will have that called Opposite.
Yeah, so the book, when it came out, was called Change Your Business, Change the World, The Domino Effect of Your Thinking. And then it got picked up by a distribution publishing company called Morgan James, who's an amazing company to work with. And they want to put it into bookstores. And so we discussed the title and we discussed the look of the book. And so we decided it would be better to change the book to Think Opposite. Using the domino effect to change your business, change the world, because really that's what my whole thing is about. If we can suspend our belief long enough to consider a different perspective, then maybe we can start having conversations and collaborate more than creating this polarization, which is what we have. And so so on Amazon, it actually exists under both names. Which is a little bit confusing right now, but come the fall, when it's in bookstores, it'll all be so much simpler to keep track of.
Okay, so then is that your first book, or you have already published a book and doing a new revision or an update or a new thing?
Yeah, it is the initial book. Yeah. It's revamped a little bit, but it is a second edition, but it is that book. And then I also wrote a chapter in an anthology with 18 other, amazing women talking about the good, the bad, the ugly of business. And it's called the No BS approach to business.
Okay. That's good. I think that's linked together, no BS and contrarian thinking, if you do it in a rational way. So I got intrigued when I looked around on your site there. You have quotes and so on from philosophers like Socrates and others. Myself is a fan of Ayn Rand's ideas and also Aristotle. That's why I'm using my Twitter name is Lyceum. Lyceum's cool. Okay. And talking about like a contrarian or opposite, Aristotle, he was a pupil or student of Plato, but he dared to go his own way and be contrarian in the thinking there. So he created his own philosophy, and it's a famous painting where you see both Aristotle and Plato, and Aristotle, he's pointing towards the earth, reality, pointing down on the ground, and Aristotle or Plato is pointing up in the sky, and there you see this difference in thinking. And then the painter, he painted himself on Aristotle's side, so he had painted different famous characters and individuals during this time, and then he painted in himself, in his face and his body on the side of Aristotle. So that's an interesting historical tidbit and philosophical, how do you say, scenario, you could say.
Right, yes. Yeah.
And in business, I mean, it come to that, to be opposite, think opposite or think contrarian. Now with political correctness and others, when here in Sweden you have this, sometimes it ending up in group thinking and consensus, and everybody should be okay with it and so on. What's your take on that?
I think it's very dangerous. I think it creates polarization, and I think it ends up that we don't know what the other person is thinking because they're trying to be so politically correct. I think there's two camps. There's those people who are trying to be very politically correct, and you don't really know what they're thinking. So what they are doing and what they are saying may sometimes be two very different things. And I don't think that's ever a good situation for people to be in. And it's definitely hard to navigate that when it's hard to know what the truth is. And then, and I think with the political correctness, it doesn't, I wonder how much it actually changes things. You know, here we have what used to be called welfare, which is when you're not working and the government is giving you a check every month. Then they decided to change the name to social services. It didn't change the fact that it was still welfare, but there was all of this change that went on around this word to try to make people feel better, when in fact they still feel exactly the same way. And so now we get to discuss whether or not it should be welfare, or it should be social services, when in fact that really isn't the issue. So it diverts our attention from what the issue is. And the issue is that there are people who are poor and in need. And when we're not thinking about that and we're thinking about language, we are not actually solving any problems. And then you have the other camp of people who don't care about political correctness, like Donald Trump, and will say whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. And I think that is equally damaging in its own way, because it puts up barriers and polarizes people so that they can't have conversations with each other, because people don't want to talk. They want to convert when they're in that state.
That's interesting. And myself, because it's my show, I am not politically correct at all, but I don't at the same time don't want to, have it as a game. That's probably what Trump is doing. He wanted to win the game and win the race, etc. And that you see on Twitter, that is like a never-ending babbling. And the other side is often then other people who are writing for them, and it's very convoluted and, as you said, political correct, and it's no meaning at all. So you have these two opposites. And what do you think is the challenge for your book there? BS, the business person who wants to run a business. It could be a solopreneur, it could be a manager, leader who has employees. To have a straight talk. But as I said, be fair and to listen to different opinions and so on. Do you have tips on that in your first book there?
Yeah, actually, I go into quite a bit in the Change Your Business, Change the World book, where it's all about understanding who we are and then aligning our business to back that up. So if we understand that why we are doing what we're doing, which is often different than our purpose. Sometimes we have jobs that are not our purpose, or we have companies that are not our purpose, because we have to make a living. And I don't want to confuse the two, because sometimes we just don't need to, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes we don't need to have our business as our passion. Some people are fortunate enough to have that, and some people aren't. But if we start exploring why we are in the business that we're in, whether we're an employee or an employer, it's why are you doing that? Why did you start company A instead of company B? Why are you working as a barista at Starbucks instead of a barista at some local coffee shop, or just serving regular coffees at a donut shop? Why are you in that place that you're at? And when you can start to understand that and explore that, then you can use that as a common thread that runs throughout your entire business. You will be able to better communicate with your customers because you know what you're trying to say. You're going to attract those customers that want to work with you because you've put out there in the open who you are as a company. And then when you're hiring staff and you understand why they're working for you instead of your competition, you can start building policies and practices around making your staff feel like they're part of the program, part of your company, as opposed to just being just filling a seat behind a desk. And then when you look at why you are doing all of that, then you can also look at why you're giving to the community and the way that you give to the community. And when you start aligning all of these things, you can't really hide behind the political correctness because you're putting out there who you are. And you can't really get into that polarization because you're taking other people into consideration, like your staff and your customers. So it has to become more collaborative. And so you can't be really in that extreme where Trump lives. And that will make this cohesive group of policies and systems and attitudes in your company. And it will lead to a more transparent business.
And this question on answering the question about why, is that taken or inspired by the Simon Sinek book and his thoughts about that? It has been very popular here in social media circles and so on.
Yes. Well, Simon Sinek is brilliant. I absolutely adore the man. And I definitely think he was onto something when he talked about the why. And what I really like, and I don't think as many people talk about when it comes to him, is really getting into what you believe. So put that out there. Let your staff know what you believe in. Let your customers know what you believe in. And that helps them understand your why in a very tangible term. He's actually talking now about millennials, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to that yet,
No,
but
not yet. As a contrarian there again, I don't think age, and I would probably thanks my stay there in America, my studies and also working, when you don't talk about age. Here in Europe, for example, especially in Sweden, it's often very focused on age, what kind of age group you're into and so on. But it could be interesting for a business person to think about target groups and so on. And the millennials thinking with the internet, I mean, integrated in their daily life. Then that I'm interesting. But I'm often asking people, what do you mean by millennials, and when should you be born there? And is it all over the board, or could people be unique and be individual there? So I mean, I don't know which generation I was born in 68, but as I am sometimes joking, as a contra-revolution, because in that area it was happening lots of strange things. So I saw recently, I saw this movie, what is called American Pastoral. Have you seen that movie?
No.
It's fascinating movie, but very scary in a way also. A girl who growing up, becoming a terrorist in the hippie movement and so on, and doing all kind of things in a small town. That's interesting, and that we could see also. I mean, in the political spectrum also, what's happening when this when you get brainwashed and so on. So
it is. I would love to see that movie. What's the name of it again?
American Pastoral. I will link to a review that my good friend Scott Holleran in California has done. I'm not a movie buff myself, but when I'm going to movies, I was in another city south of Sweden, and when we had the opportunity to attend or go to visit an old-fashioned cinema, so that was fun to do. And then that was the movie to pick. So when I went to online and went to my good friend scottholleran.com and checked if he had reviewed that movie. So and I read it and said, okay, I have to go. And now I posted it, so he's to joke waiting for my comment on his review and the movie. And recently now I saw in a daily newspaper here in Sweden a review of Lala or LA Land that he have written a beautiful review of, and that's my personal taste. But I want to go watch mostly feel-good movies with a happy ending, with some important values in it. So that's why, for example, my favorite movie all times, I think, is Chocolat with Lasse Hallström. Have you watched that?
I have. That is a beautiful movie.
And I mean, you could see it as a so-called chick flick or romantic movie. And I do that too, but also as a very important movie about ideas. And there you could say the contrarian again. Mother and daughter is coming to a small village in France during Lent, setting up a chocolaterie. And that's going against all the grains and everything that they are so-called standing for there. And it's interesting to see this battle.
Yes.
And that we maybe could come back to with the small business owners, but also domino thinking. Could you link this domino theory to this political thing also, that if one domino brick is falling, the rest is falling? I saw that book cover that you had that.
Right.
Or what is the leading thinking there, or thoughts of line there?
Well, with the domino thinking, what happens is that we have a thought and then we act on it. And we don't actually think about where that thought's going to land, who it's going to impact, and what avenues it's going to open, good and bad. And then we end up in a place and go, whoa, how did we get here? Mm-hmm. Well, we got there because we didn't actually consider the outcome when we got started on that journey. And I understand that we can't anticipate all potential outcomes, but there has to be some level of accountability when we are doing things to think about the ramifications of our choices. And that's really what domino thinking is about, is that taking that second, and it doesn't take that long, not really, not once you start doing it, to go, if I do this, what will happen?
Yep. Yeah, philosophical.
And and get very philosophical about it. And if that's not where you want it to go, then just shift your initial action by 2%, 5%, 20%. 100%, whatever it needs to be shifted by to make sure that you end up where you want to end up. We spend so much time thinking about what we're doing right now. We don't think about what could happen. You know, we spend all this time doing science to split the atom without any thought that that's going to become a bomb and it's going to kill people and change humanity. And it's easy to look back and go, whoa, they should have thought of that. But at the time, they were so intent on doing what it is that they do without considering what would really happen when they unleash that.
And always it's, I mean, how you use it, in what form. I mean, it could be as a weapon or it could be as a defense. I mean, it's in philosophical speaking, it's called this cause and effect. And also some friends that I also did a great interview with, called Dr. Leonard Peikoff, and the interview series was called Ideas in Action. So what he have been brought up to and listened to and learned, and also he became the heir of Miss Rand. So it's interesting to see this, what kind of effect it have your ideas and thoughts. So that's good that you point that out. Think about the consequences.
We don't think about where our information's coming from, and then we don't think about what we're doing with that information. So there was just a women's march here in the States, and like 1 million women marched against Trump. And and then there was this big article that came out about what a mess that they left, and all of the garbage and and it became quite this thing. And then there was an opportunity there to do one of two things. I guess three things. One, you could just ignore it. Two, you could get on that bandwagon and criticize the women for leaving the mess. Or three, you could take a step further and find out why they left a mess. And a lot of times they were told to leave their signs by the police because they couldn't get on the buses. Sometimes they left them like as a monument. And in fact, the people that cleaned up a lot of it said it was some of the cleanest events that they ever had to clean up after. So when you think about where that information is coming from, what side of the polar opposites are putting out that information? What is their motive? And then what are you doing with that information? And how can you get more information to round out your opinion? Yeah,
that's why I like...
and we don't do that.
That's what I like. Social... no, but sorry, it's okay. It's going back and forth, a conversation, and maybe sometimes a debate also, and a dialogue. I mean, that's why I like social media, to see what's happening. And I'm for freedom of speech, and then, of course, you have to take care of your responsibilities if you do something. So maybe you will listen to my interview with Maria Dolores. She talks about human rights and responsibilities. She has written a book about that. And also what's happening when you get this conflict, like istima, that she calls it. That could be anger, and how you ventilate that. And so on. So... that's things to say. I mean, you could be upset about things. You could demonstrate in different ways. You could do it silently. You could do it with social media, and you could do it out in the street also. But you have to take consequences of your actions. And that, I mean, here in Sweden, we got that when I was in America. When I mean, I have not been a favor of Bushes. But when he was visiting George W. Bush here in it, what was World Bank or something like that, people were out in the streets and throwing stones and crushing things. And I mean, people here in Gothenburg was afraid of their lives. And I got questions from my friends in America, where did I come from, and so on. And I mean, it's scary. And then people hide their faces, and the police was very pressed. And then they got accused in order to, when they tried to calm down and have a safety for citizens. So that, I think, is a scary thing when you have this mob mentality and the anarchist is roaming in the street. And then you could see the other things, what leading up. After this movie, I went to the hotel room, and then it was a documentary about this sausage guy, to joke, Wiener, the mayor, that tried to be a mayor in New York. Have you heard about him?
No.
He's married, I don't know if it's still, but I think so, with Uma, that was behind Hillary Clinton. But he was in a scandal in different ways, and then how they should react on that. It was always very, they thought about what they were thinking, but more tactical in a way, and very political correct. And then he got caught again and again, and he didn't win the race, but they did a reality show, or they interviewed him and also record him and video record him during this campaign. And it was, it was interesting to see, but in a way very scary also to see how he was acting like a politician, and all this camp around him. So that was a side note how it could end up. So.
Yeah, things can go sideways quickly. Things can go from being totally perfectly safe to being not safe in a hurry. And I think part of this is a result of social media, because while social media, and this is like the two sides of the same coin, on the one hand, it does allow us to talk with people that we wouldn't ordinarily get to speak with, which I think is a beautiful thing. On the other hand, it allows us to surround ourselves with people who think exactly like us, which is a dangerous thing, because then we think we are more right than we actually are. Because everybody in our group is telling us we're right. I agree. You're right. You're right. You're right. And I think that we do have a responsibility, excuse me, and to speak up at those times and say, really? Do you think that's right? Do you think there could be a different way? Do you think there could be a better way? And use social media as a way to promote conversation. Like I talk a lot about conversing versus converting. There's a big difference between having a conversation with somebody and wanting to convert them to your point of view. And it's that converting that gets dangerous. Yeah.
I like the conversation and continue the thread. But at the same time, of course, I want to get people so-called converted to my philosophy and ideas, but they should do that in a freely way, and I'm not the missionary for it. Even if I call it I call myself a social media evangelist and a Renaissance man, because I want to create something better, spreading better ideas and better future. And I'm a very, interested and take ideas and principles seriously. So that's why I have here around this halftime the point about the trader principle that Miss Rand coined. Have you any thoughts about that? How you exchange ideas and values in a free society?
Well, I'm not familiar with what she speaks on. So I don't know if you want to go into that further or just talk in general about how we exchange ideas.
Yeah, you could do that in a general way.
Yeah, in general, I think we want to share ideas with the people who think like us because we want to be right. It feels good to feel right. It's an aphrodisiac where we feel powerful and we feel like we have some say and some control. And then when we encounter somebody who disagrees with us, we feel diminished or we lack confidence, and part of that comes from not even knowing what it is we really believe in. So it makes it very difficult for us to trade ideas when we haven't fully explored our own ideas. And the only way to fully explore our own ideas is to suspend them and to think opposite. So if I believe in A, I need to think about all the other letters in the alphabet. I need to think about Z and then encompass everything in between so that I can now speak intelligently about my position. And I think we can't trade ideas if we don't have intelligent conversations or thought processes. And if we don't question something that we believe in, then what's the point of believing in it? You know, if you take religion, for example, if I'm speaking to somebody who's Christian and that's all they've ever studied, that's all they ever know, I'm not that interested in really having a conversation with them. But if somebody has studied all religions and decides that Christianity is the one that works best for them, I want to have a conversation with that person. It's going to be far more intelligent. It's going to be far more well-versed, and it'll engage me in a way that speaking to somebody who comes from a solo point of view won't. So when we trade ideas, I think it's important to come to the table with a clear understanding of what our own ideas are. And if we don't have that own clarity, then be open to what the other person has to say.
And myself, and have studied most of religious in different ways. And Aristotle, he was in a way originator of primitive philosophy and what it led up to. And I am myself is an atheist. I am a believer in the reason. So take it reason in a serious way. But I at the same time, I say that I have had most interesting discussions, debates, and dialogues with religious people, because they are serious and take principles and ideas, fundamental ideas in a serious way. But I know the ideas in action and the consequences of these ideas. So that's why I'm look out for it also, what's happening.
Right.
For example, when Donald Trump, together with other men, was signing about the woman's right against abortion.
Right.
So, I mean, that's one consequence. Or, for example, a militant Muslim that don't allow you to, if you do a character of Allah or Muhammad or something like that, when you have freedom of speech. So, I mean, it's interesting to see that, and it could see the consequences in a very hard way. So you could have a very interesting discussions, and you could think like you have this expression, and that I often try to do, think like a devil's advocate, and also think from the other side. And you're a supporter of freedom of speech and defend even so-called your enemies. But you should also be very aware what would happen if they are in power, or if they are not for freedom of speech or letting the other side speak up. And that we have seen, I mean, in many ways recently. And that's scary. But also through history, of course. I mean, you have to, as I said, learn from the history, live today and pluck the day, and then plan for the future. So.
Yeah, sounds like a pretty simple formula.
Yeah, it is pretty simple. And then it's, I mean, put it in action. And do it.
Yeah, it's not so simple. Yeah, I think people stumble on some of those bits. I think we become attached to one of the three, but the secret is actually engaging in all three of them. Yeah,
and I mean, for me, it's who was saying that? But I mean, leaders are readers, and you learn, and you study, and you read books. And a segment here is also from audiobooks. audibletrial.com/ego, and there you could ego netcast, and there you could get the free trial of an audiobook, and they are owned by Amazon. So your book, where you could find that at Amazon, right? Because I was searching, you had a link. Will it be in audio format also?
It will be in the fall.
Yeah. Okay.
So when my book actually hits the bookstores, they'll be doing an audio version of it, which will be really great to have done. And it is a really great thing that Amazon has with Audible, because when you think about how much time we spend in transit, I listen to more books than I read now because I drive a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm on planes and I'm traveling and I'm not always in a place where I can just pull out a book. And it's so easy to just have it there. And there's something about hearing somebody else say the words that changes it from this silent thing that happens inside your own head when you're reading to actually hearing it. And I think it brings in a different perspective of with using different senses. And I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a big fan of podcasting also. You could, of course, it could be fun maybe to see each other and watch each other and people could watch us as a video, and I like that too. But to concentrate on the sound and listening to it, and you could do it whenever you want, during walks, whatever, walking the cat, or cooking, or doing other things. Of course, you have to have some kind of concentration and focus also. But you could, when you have reading or listening to books, you could also do other things, and it's easier, and you could get through the book. But at the same time, I did a review of what was it called now? It was it Tim Sanders? I will check it up, on small business trends, to be a fan of books and the lovers of books, and especially hardcovers. And he explained that why you should have real books also, and especially hardcovers, because it's something with the feeling, the sensory thing, the right notes to even smell the book and so on. So I always have books in my backpack also, but it's very efficient and effective, and you could grasp things in a quick way with audiobooks. So I like the combination. And then also to have so-called simpler books like in pocket that you could give away, or you could easily put in your pocket and so on. So I think all these different formats is good.
It is. I think it's people fall into categories of where they can best get the information. I think the key is to get information, to learn, to expand and consider. I know when I switched from books to iPad, it was, I struggled with it a little bit. I didn't want to give up that book because it's like you say, there is something really cool and tangible about holding a book and getting lost in it. And even now, if I'm just reading a novel, I'm good on my iPad. But if I'm learning from a book, if it's a business book or something like that, I need the hard copy. And I'll listen to it. Like I'll get the Audible too, and I'll listen to it. But I think it's that engaging as many ways of participating in what you're taking in as possible.
Yeah. And besides your own book that's soon coming then in this version, do you have any tips or suggestion or something that you're reading, listening to at the moment?
I'm reading a book called Against Empathy, and I'm finding it really quite fascinating. It's how empathy can often get in the way of us making good choices, and that we think that because we're being empathetic, we are actually right. And when we act in the name of empathy, we're not right. And it's a really, I can't think off my top of my head who wrote it right now, but a very enjoyable, thought-provoking book.
Great.
Highly recommending it.
I will add that in show notes, because personally, I must say, maybe it's sometimes a difference in different languages, but I have struggle with the word empathy, because it's very easy to add on. If, for example, you have a dialogue, debate, discussion with somebody, and then somebody say, because they don't agree with your thoughts and they think it's harsh or whatever, they say you don't have empathy. Especially, my philosophy that I'm subscribing to. If you say that you're a rational egoist, or that you're for capitalism or whatever, you could easy for the opposition to say this kind of things, that you are cold-hearted, that you have no empathy, for example. And that's why they created these new words, new speak, as you said, with welfare and others, with coming up with things. Because often they are not in their situation, but they they take this missionary thing for others. instead of letting them figure it out.
And that's the danger of empathy, because we think we know better.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, empathy is just a story we're telling ourselves about another person.
Yeah.
And who knows if that story is actually accurate or not. One of the examples that he uses in this book is that if there's a vaccine that goes out and a child dies from it, people want to take it off the market because they over-empathize with this child that died in her family. But by taking it off the market, you could have dozens, hundreds of other kids dying because they're not getting the vaccine. So was being empathetic to this one child worth taking the vaccine off the market and having hundreds die?
And that's very important to say, because that have been often accused for people who have invented things in the early days, and then later on they attack them and say, but we have benefit for a long time. That's why, for example, when I see a factory or skyscraper or something like that, I thank the Industrial Revolution, because it's led up what we could do right now. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to sit here and have a conversation. But of course, I'm for this modern age also, and times, and what you could do in different ways. But if it hasn't been for the history and the development there, we haven't been here right now, been able to use the technology for our purposes.
Well, and I think it's important too to advocate for those wins that we've had in our history that's given us this life that we have, and then advocate for what is actually working. And sometimes if we focus more on what's working and sometimes not as much on what's not working, we can create a positive atmosphere around us. Now, I'm a big fan too of looking at what's broken so that we can fix it. But I think there is definitely this negativity go along. And I think there's a big difference between looking at something and saying, oh, you're doing it wrong. Don't do it that way. And saying, I see why you're doing that, but there may be a better way. Can we explore that? And then that becomes a collaborative effort, and you're working on getting a solution to the problem. You're not just pointing out there's a problem. You're actually part of the solution. And I think if we can all start focusing on what's working, and then when something's not working, become part of the solution instead of just part of the people that are trashing it, I think we'll see faster progress.
I mean, one recent example here is now this dumb idea to build a wall. And that will come up to lead up to the tequila thing, and oranges and drinks, because without people coming from one border to other, the Americans and others wouldn't be able to have these nice beverages. But here, that's the discussion here in Sweden also, because it's lots of influx of people, and it's in Europe it's easy to get access. And we're lots of challenges here, but as I say, I'm for free immigration and on the other side, when you go out and go in. But then at the same time, you have to have rules, and you have to have safety, and you have to be very clear about that you don't agree on crimes or things that are threatening our lives. But I mean, Mexicans are not doing that in general. Of course, you have all things with smuggling and drugs and whatever things that are not good, and that you should stop. But I mean, a wall will not so-called be the solution, and it's also a symbolic thing. So
there's that.
Because because in the
they took down the Berlin Wall for a reason.
Yeah, and I'm very happy with that happened, and here in Sweden we had people who were defending the Berlin Wall and the communists and so on, and you also saw when I did when I was doing a international project coordination course, we had an experience, practical experience at the end for like 3 months, and then I went to Sopron, Hungary, and there it was that the Berlin Wall was taken down first, and then it was in Berlin, but it was in Hungary first. So they had this called how do you say, picnic with the trabants and the small cars. So they knew in 89 where around the time when the wall would fall, but then it was easy to go there in Hungary and the border to Austria and so on, and coming from Czechoslovakia and other places. So they took their vans and the cars, and at the special moment they opened the borders. And I have been there and seen this historical, could say, scary moment, because still you see watching posts, you see minefields, you see it's almost like a desert, and there it was borders between west and east. But yeah, you're right about that, and we should bring down the walls and have free borders, and at the same time to be safe. So.
And I think, like, I believe that cultures should be shared. I believe there's also needs to be caution when doing it, which is not to say stop doing it, but it's to say make sure there are structures in place that best serve everybody involved. Because when you take one culture that believes in something very strongly and you put them in another culture who doesn't have maybe rules around that, how does that impact? Like, it creates a state of chaos. And then it's harder to manage after the fact. But if before the fact we can lay platforms and groundwork for a transition or a way of dealing with it, I think we're much better off than trying to fix the problems after the fact. And I just see us constantly jumping into action and then going, uh-oh, now we have to fix something. And it is good to sometimes leap and then figure out how to build the parachute on the way down.
Yep.
I get that that's an important thing to do as well. But I think we do have to take some caution with it. Yeah. And then, of course, act on it, because there is so much value to exploring other cultures and sharing the gifts that exist within those cultures.
So what's your future plan in the Canuck country?
Well, I think I'll be speaking more about these kinds of things and traveling more and just soaking up all the information that I can with the way that people process, the way they think about things, working with businesses to help them think about how they're doing things differently so that they can use their business for more than just a tool to make money, but as a tool to actually create positive change.
Are you mainly speaking in North America, or do you going visit Europe also and other Asia?
I will speak anywhere. I'm a travel fanatic, so I want to go everywhere. And if there's a speaking opportunity at the end of it, I will be happy to go there. Yeah. Great.
Do you have any tips on future guests or topics? I mean, I have now this great service, podcastguest.com, so I'm almost booked for a year now if I would have a guest every month and then have a solo show every 2 weeks then. So it will be every 2 weeks I will have a show, because I have another show together with a co-host in Swedish called about productivity and tea. So it's called produktivitet in Swedish. It's a made-up word of to be productive and drink tea. So,
I like it. I like it a lot.
So we drink tea and then we talk about to do things and other things like that. And we're coming in a way from different directions. But it's interesting to have this conversation. So that's my plan. And now with your show, will it be a podcast or will it be a radio show or both?
Both. Yeah. So we record live, and which is kind of cool because then we can have people phone in. And there's an 800 number, and people can phone in and comment and bring up their points of view, because I really want to encourage this conversation between opposing points of view. And so the show's called Think Opposite, and it's with CTR Network, Contact Talk Radio Network. And it airs Wednesdays at 1 Pacific Standard Time. And then it'll be aired repeat show 12 hours later, and then a couple more times through the week. And then it'll be available on iTunes and through my website, dominothinking.com as well. And Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I had a radio show all of last year, but it was a very different type of show, and this is definitely more up my alley.
Great to hear, and interesting to hear about your future plans. And you keep us posted here and what's happening.
Yes, for sure. And feel free to join if you're not already part of my Domino Thinking page on Facebook, and I can share some of your posts, your shows and stuff on there. I'd be really happy to do that.
Great. Do you have any giveaway for listeners, readers, fans of Ego Netcast, or some tidbits that you want to give away or direct them to some place? Go.
Well, I would be happy to gift, I could probably gift like 5 copies of my book.
Oh.
So if anybody wants to email me at Alison@dominothinking.com, I will send off 3 of my books, Change Your Business, Change the World. And I'd be happy to do that.
Great. Very much.
And if anybody just wants to talk, or if I've said anything that intrigues conversation, or if they have questions, if they're running their own business and they have a question about it, I'm always more than happy to get on a phone call or through email, answer questions.
Yeah, maybe we have opposite views in some ways with myself and you. I don't know. So that's the thing. I like.
Go ahead.
I like lurkers. I like so on, but I often want to have a conversation. I mean, for example, to joke, but also to be serious. With our podcast in Swedish, our first review was 1-star review. And a person who said that we had wasted 10 minutes of his life because we didn't come to, to, how to say, we talked about thinking about things and drinking tea, and it's just how to do things, and people could be very used to, I want to have tricks and tips directly, show me the thing, but it's a conversation. But when I found the reviewer on Twitter also and asked if he had written the review, and he said yes, and I said when we will mention and read out loud your review on our show. And then he said, is this a thing for me to have another take on your show and listen? And in a way it's not, but we want to have this conversation and continue off the thread. And we like to have both rice, or how to say, roses or tomatoes or whatever, to have constructive criticism and feedback. We like too. So, but at the same time, I'm aware that people, because podcasts, you could listen whenever you want. You could nod during the show. You could maybe, how to say, do a fist or swear or something like that. But often it takes some time to write a review, to give stars, to reach out on Twitter and other things, because it takes time and so on. And so I'm happy anyway if people listen, but even better if they reach out in one way or another, and adding their 2 cents to the conversation.
Yeah, well, because that's when the conversation happens. So we certainly learn more from the people who disagree with us than the people who agree with us. Yeah. That's
great. So, and it's Domino Thinking. Do you have some other sites or other places that you want them to go to?
Well, that's my main website, dominothinking.com. You can find me on Facebook under the same name. I have Instagram under the same name. And then I have my name, Alison Donaghey, and that is my last name spelled Donaghey, and that's on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Great. So now we will come to this important question. What's your favorite beverage? And somewhere on your site, things about me or things that I like or dislike and other things like that, I saw this special beverage, or how do you say, things that you drink with a twist, especially on the other side of the wall in Mexico, tequila.
Yes.
So how should it be drunk, and what's your favorite? We are not sponsored by any brand yet, but maybe we could end up with that.
Well, I always think that it should be on the rocks, because if you can't drink it on the rocks, it's probably not a good enough tequila.
Yeah.
And and I think it should be definitely drank with good company.
Yeah.
And my favorite one right now is called Class Azul. I think that's how you say it. And it comes in a beautiful bottle, and it's my favorite. At the time, a friend of mine introduced it to me. For Christmas, I buy him expensive scotch, and he buys me expensive tequila so that we can broaden our horizons. And this is right now by far my favorite. So yes, on ice in good company.
That sounds great. So we'll add that in show notes somehow. So you have to send me an email about that. And I like tequila as an ingredient in my favorite drink, margarita.
Yes.
And I recently went on a trip to Denmark, and there they had Cointreau with blood oranges. So it was red oranges. And so I will test that and see how that works. And then you have tequila, and then you have or some other citrus liqueur, and then tequila, and then lime juice. And I think it's both sweet, and then it has a kick to it, and then this tequila flavor that you don't really know how to describe. So, and now you got your incoming phone call, I think. Right?
Sorry,
no.
Usually I'm unplugged, but no, I've unplugged it now.
No problem. So, so that could be a show at its own to discuss tequila. And maybe
I could talk a lot about tequila.
To think about opposite, is it true with this? And I know it is not, but with this worm, or what do you say, in the bottle?
I'm sorry. The worm in the bottle. Yeah, I avoid the worm.
Yeah.
But I know people who don't.
Yeah.
So it's a personal taste.
And it's like. They call it here like a fairy tale, or how do you say? It's something that it's made up, like a rat in the pizza and so on.
It's like an urban
legend.
Yeah,
urban legend.
Something?
Thanks. Yeah, my brother's name is Urban, so the man from the city. But it's also, as you said, Urban Dictionary or Urban Legends. Yeah.
Yeah, I bought tequila that has worms in it. So
okay.
It's true.
It's true.
Yes, it exists.
I have drinking beverages with chili peppers in it. That's more my liking. So, because I like hot stuff. And during this conversation, I have had my favorite beverage, that is tea. And I'm drinking right now matcha green powder tea. It's been very good for my voice and also to focus during this conversation.
It's healthy.
Yeah, it's healthy, very healthy.
Very healthy.
Do you drink tea or? I'm
not a big tea drinker, which is a shame.
Yeah, then you have to start.
Because I like the idea of it. But then I always kind of, anytime I'm given tea, I always just kind of think it tastes like watered down flavor. And so I don't drink it that often. And then I think it's something that you explore.
Yeah, it is.
Like most things, to find what you like. And I don't always have the time or inclination for that. But it's not that I don't drink it. I just don't explore it on my own.
Yeah.
And maybe one day
I
will. And I do when I travel. I tend to drink more tea when I'm in different countries than I do when I'm at home. And, I was in Cambodia and they have a really good spicy drink, in Siem Reap. No, is that where it was? Oh, and so, when you said putting chili in alcohol, I was like, oh, yeah, I've had that. That was excellent.
Okay. So now when I'm going through show notes, you have to send me some links here and so on, because it will be hard to find these things, I think. But
I'll see if I can find a recipe for that drink for you.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody has it from who I was with there. And they also serve alcohol that has tarantulas in it.
What did they have in it, you said?
A tarantula, like those giant spiders?
Oh, I'm afraid of spiders, so I wouldn't. Oh.
Yeah, they put it in a jar, and I guess the poison ferments, and it becomes an alcohol. And I didn't try it. I did eat crickets, but I did not try the spider one.
You could eat chocolate-covered crickets, and that I will include in the show notes about how to brand a company. They had this crickets, like a phone company that changed its name to something with crickets, and then they send out the chocolate-covered crickets to to bloggers and other influencers, and they really got talked about them in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's fascinating what you could what do you say, consume in different ways.
Oh, yes, yes. And I try to try things that are put in front of me.
Yep.
Some of it I just have to say no to, but sometimes it's, yeah.
That's good to know. So,
Mm-hmm.
and because lots of different culinary things here around the world. And I will end with here call to action that stay tuned with the Ego Netcast and go to egonetcast.com/support, and there you could support the show in different ways. You could spread the good word, you could write a review, give stars, donate things, and etc. So with that, I want to ask you to again, Alison, to say something like an end note or a plug of your site or something that you come up with. The end note.
Mm-hmm. Sorry?
Yeah, do you have anything that you want to end with? You as a guest get the last say.
All right. I would just like to challenge people to think about what they think about, to once a day think opposite. And it can be in a really small way. But if you find yourself feeling very passionate about something, take a second, take a deep breath, and consider the different perspective. Because in doing so, you're opening yourself up to more learning and to helping create a better world. So think opposite once a day.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Alison. Thank you for your time and thanks for the conversation. And talk to you soon again.
Sounds great. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.